It is November the 30th, 29th. We are in section 4.7 continued. But this time we're going to talk about the discriminant. The discriminant. Okay, what the discriminant does is it tells what types of solutions you are going to have. In other words, it will tell us whether we have 2 real and 0 imaginary, which imaginary is not something that you have talked about yet. That will be next week. It'll tell us if we have 1 real, and we call that a double root. And it will tell us if we have 0 real and 2 imaginary. Solutions when we're talking about using the quadratic formula. Can't find my... Yes. Okay. No, it just 1 real, and we're going to see the picture to what it looks like in just a second. But pretty much what happens is it goes down, hits that at the x-axis, and then comes back up. So it only touches the x-axis 1 time. Whereas your 2 reals touch it twice, and your 0 reals do not touch it at all. And we're going to see in just a second. All right, the value of the discriminant. This is very important. B squared minus 4AC. Does that look familiar? Where? It comes from the quadratic formula. It's the part underneath the square root. And what we're going to do is we are going to evaluate the discriminant based on this. And somebody tell me why that thing would tell us how many real solutions we got. No, this is the discriminant right here. This is the discriminant, okay? Let's just look. I'll give you the table. The value of the discriminant. The number of real solutions, or number of solutions. And the x-intercepts. Okay, let's say I have b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0. Okay, does that mean that it is positive or negative? If it's greater than 0, does that mean it's positive or negative? It means it's positive. So in other words, if you'll look up here, the part that's underneath the square root, if we had 4 plus or minus the square root of 60 over 3, this part right here, that's the discriminant, and it's positive. So what that tells us is that I get 2 real solutions. And if I have 2 real solutions, that means it's going to have 2 x-intercepts. There's your xy, or your coordinate plane, and it crosses the x-axis twice. So that's your first case. Then I have, what if b squared minus 4ac let's look up here. When we have 4 plus or minus square root of 0 over 8. Does anybody remember what kind of solutions we get there? What is 4 plus 0? 4 over 8 is 1/2. 4 minus 0. 4 over 8 is 1/2. So how many answers do we actually get? We get one real solution. Okay, so when the discriminant equals 0, we get one real solution. And that graph, what happens is the graph comes down, touches the x-axis, and switches directions. Now, of course, this can open down. You could have a graph that looks like this. If it touches the x-axis and switches directions, that's one real root. It's called a double root. And then you have the kind where b squared minus 4ac is what? Less than 0. Does that mean it's positive or it's negative? Negative means less than 0. And this is like number 7 yesterday when some of you actually got to number 7 and you got a negative underneath that square root, and I said you don't know how to do it yet. And the reason you don't know how to do it is because this gives you 0 real solutions and 2 imaginary solutions. How would that graph look? If this we're talking about the x-intercepts and you have 0 real solutions, that means you have 0 x-intercepts. Anybody have any idea what that looks like? It never touches, so it could be some graph that looks like this, where it's never going to touch the x-axis, or some graph that looks like that. 0 real solutions. 0 x-intercepts. Okay, so let's look at example 1. It just says to use discriminant to determine how many real solutions there are. Use the discriminant to determine how many real solutions there are. All right, so you have A. Let's say I give you negative 2x squared minus 3x plus 5 equals 0. Okay, first thing we always need to make sure we do is we make sure it's set equal to 0. If it's not set equal to 0, we can't do b squared minus 4ac. Now, when you see this keyword discriminant, you should be thinking b squared minus 4ac every single time you see discriminant. Now, could you technically solve this by using the quadratic formula and give me the kinds of solutions you have? You could go through all the work and solve it, but my directions didn't tell you to solve it. The directions just said to use the discriminant. So what is A in this case? Negative 2, B is negative 3, and C is 5. And we are just going to use the discriminant. And what do you have to be careful of if you're using your calculator when you're typing in this negative 3 squared? That you put negative 3 in parentheses, negative 3 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times negative 3. And what do you get? 49. That means that this part underneath the square root, underneath the radical, is a 49. What kind of solutions are we going to get? Yes? It shouldn't be. It should be 5, shouldn't it? Sorry. Should it be 5? Is that what your question was going to ask? Okay. But we still get 49, correct? Okay, so what does that tell us? Is it positive, negative, or zero? Positive, and what does that mean we have? Two real solutions. And could you sketch a little graph to show me what it looked like? How many times would it cross the x-axis? No, because that would be 7. 4 plus 7, and then 4 minus 7 are two different, but that's a great question. 49 actually gives us the fact that because we can take the square root of it, we get one of those that we can actually get a number for. It's called rational, okay? And so, actually, does this graph up or down? Sure. Opens down. We know it crosses the x and it opens down. I just want you to know what it looks like. I'm not going to ask you to sketch it on homework or anything. B, you do this one. 2x squared minus 3x equals negative 7. Is you have to set it equal to 0 first, so you add 7 and you get 2x squared minus 3x plus 7 equals 0. Then, some of you made this mistake. A lot of you did b squared minus 4ac, which was negative 3 in parentheses squared minus 4 times 2 times 7. And you get a negative 47. Well, some of you put the square root with the negative 47. But that's not the value of the discriminant. The discriminant is just negative 47. It is the part under the square root. So it's negative. Does that mean I have 2 real, 0 real, or 1 real? 0 real. How many imaginary? 2 imaginary. And how many x-intercepts do I have? If I were to graph it, my x-intercepts, do I have any? 0 x-intercepts. Okay, you try C. X squared equals 6x plus 5.